Hey, welcome to the Creative Marketing Show. It's great to have you here. I have a really cool, topic today. And that has to do with something that's coming up because I think this is going to change a lot of creatives' lives, especially those photographers out there. In May, I am going to focus on the business of photography. And this is the Creative Marketing Podcast. And there's part of this that brings in a little guilt on my part, which is when I focus too deeply on one area of creative. But obviously, photography is the foundation in terms of what we do and what we talk about here. So I guess I can't feel too guilty about it. And here's the great thing about it is that a lot of what I'm going to talk about during these next 30 days on this channel, this YouTube channel specifically, is information that I think any creative can use. I'm going to be digging deep into some areas that I think is going to be really, really helpful. And so welcome all to the Creative Marketing Show. And if you are new to this show, this is a marketing and business show for creative people here on every Monday around 4 o'clock. I share these ideas live where you can ask questions, any kind of question. You can always come to the videos afterwards and ask questions later. That's fine too. But I decided that this month specifically, 31 days with 31 different topics, drilling down on this channel. And it's really a lot of it because I'm a little bit over 800 subscribers on this channel. And I think I can push it pretty easily to 1,000. When I create good videos, this channel grows a lot easier than my other channel. So I'm going to see where I can push it. And so that's what I'm going to do over those next 31 days and share some really deep insights, the stuff that I think people really don't talk about and share with creatives. I mean, we're creative people. We want to do stuff that we love to do. And the reality is nobody really shows us other than maybe the surface or what they want to sell us. But I think there's a lot more to be shared. And at the end of it, speaking of selling it, let me come clean. It'll be 31 days of free YouTube videos. But this is what I also know. After I do these kinds of things, there are people that want to, hey, Diana, how you doing? There are people who would like to follow up and have their questions answered more one-on-one or in a group setting, in a consultative setting. So during these 31 days, I'm going to set up another membership group. And I also have a free download too. So that will help answer questions. So if you have questions related to your business, or you're just beginning and you want a good fresh start, you can download this PDF and it basically asks a bunch of questions to help you get you started and pointed in the right direction. So I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So I'm really excited about it. And in this podcast, this show, I'm talking about a number of the things that will be discussed during those 31 days, obviously just not as in depth. And each video, let me tell you, I've written out maybe 35 topics at this point. So I'll obviously combine some of them because I know they work well together. But, some of the things I think you need to know is understanding that hiring you as a photographer is a risk. Hiring me as a photographer is a risk. So how can we lower that risk? I want to talk about the marketing side, obviously. We'll certainly dig down into awareness, traffic conversions, and retention, and the plans that we need to create around that. I'll certainly talk about the solar system method. I will talk about all the things that I've talked about on this podcast. And if you've been listening over the last 10 years, you most certainly have heard many of these different topics before, but I have not had a series this long and in depth before and in this way. So I'm actually both. Thank you, Diana. That's good to hear, because I'm kind of nervous, because it's going to be a lot of work in a short period of time. Because here's the kicker: I thought of this Saturday, and it's 2 days away, and 2 days away is Wednesday, and that's the 1st of May. So guess how many videos I have created? Yeah, that many. 0. I don't have any created. Actually, I started recording today. I have the intro done. I have created the intro to it. I've created so the piece, the download. So I've been working at it. But you know what? This is not as bad as 2 years ago on my other channel, where I thought I'd kick it off with 100 videos in January to start off the year. Now that's crazy enough, but at the same time, I had to move my studio, and I went on a week-long vacation. Yeah. So I don't always have the best timing. However, I think my timing is pretty good this month. I have work lined up. I can do my work. I have time set aside, chunks of time where I can record these videos, and I think it's going to be great. So thank you for your support, Diana. I really appreciate it. It is much needed. So what are some of the things? I'm going to talk lightly on some ideas, but there's often barriers when trying to get into your business, your creative business, even photography. One of my #1 videos on YouTube is, how much does it cost to start a YouTube channel? And that's really moving along. But how much does it cost to start a photography business? And the reality is, I could. Hey, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be fun. You're a video editor. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's that's a talent and skill. That's for sure. How much does it cost? Well, the thing is, today you have so much at your fingertips that doesn't cost very much, or you can incorporate into a job. For example, how much equipment do you need? Well, you can certainly rent equipment relatively easily today, much easier than you could a few years ago. I had an assignment not long ago, and there's a lens that I wanted, and I ordered the lens, and there you go. It was there on my doorstep a day or two later. I did a video, and I ordered some lavalier mics, some little bit stronger ones that I have, better ones than what I keep here in the studio, because I knew it was required for that client. So if you think about it, and you know what, I knew photographers, especially high-end automotive photographers, who did this years ago, who would just rent their equipment wherever they were going. And they hardly had any equipment at all. And so you can still do that today, except it's more accessible, and you can incorporate that in your job. So your marketing, if it's social media can be your marketing, and the cost of that, of course, is your time. So a lot of the costs are your time. And today you don't have to spend as much out-of-pocket money to even doing it right. But there is that one secret that's not so secret. It's that when I started writing the Rebel books, the Canon Rebel, the T4 and 5 eyes, were the books that I wrote for Wiley on the topics, the digital field guides. I was using those cameras for literally international photography assignments and advertising. And the thing is that the sensors are so good. I mean, as long as you put an exact, I'm reading Diana's comments, and I said it aloud. If you, where I'm going with it. How funny. Where was I? Somebody remind me, where was I in the whole scheme of things? Oh, the Rebel. So I was using the Rebel for these assignments, and as long as you put a good lens in front of that sensor, you're in good shape. And yeah, let's see, Harley. Hey, Harley, welcome. T7i, great sensors, international. Yeah, I mean they really are. I think that Canon often puts the newer, better sensors in those smaller cameras before they put them into the bigger ones sometimes. They do a lot of experimentation. So I still have the T6. That's where I record a lot of my videos on now. I actually prefer the T4, and I would use it. A lot of my first year and a half of videos until it conked out on me was on the T4. And I actually preferred it over the T6 for different reasons. But anyway, there are a lot of interesting things that you can bring to the table when talking about the business of photography that I think a lot of people are not. Again, understanding what is the problem you are solving as a photographer. I think a lot of times, yeah, a lot of the lenses cost more than the bodies. That's right, Harley. And so you can rent those. You can rent those. Get a good body, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can have one. And if you feel you need a higher end body, I had a great client. I mean, big agency coming to my studio, and I rented a couple lenses, and then did a lot of the, or not lenses, but bodies to photograph my test shots with them, and then use the Rebels from that point on. Although I had other cameras, I ended up using the Rebels for a lot of those. But yeah, there's so many things that you need to be thinking about in terms of the problems you're solving, and what is it that you can do to better improve your communication with your clients. And I think a lot of times we forget about that. We forget about how we have to price our photography. Yes, I'm going to talk about that. That's an area I talk a lot about and write a lot about. And so I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about keeping in control of the sale. I'm going to talk about the solar system method. How about scope creep? Do you guys know what that is? That's actually one of the big videos for me too, is on scope creep. How clients can, I bet Diana knows what scope creep is, how clients, I mean, we all have to deal with it at some level. And that is when the client keeps coming back for a little bit more and a little bit more. And you say, oh yeah, no problem, a little bit more. And next thing you know, it is like a day's worth of work that you just did for free. And how do you combat that? And I'm going to share how you do that, because that really is an important thing to know how to combat that. It'll save your money. Diana says, oh yes, she knows. And so I want to really get in deep with so many of these different things. And if you have a few ideas, oh, yes, as a software guy, Harley knows all about scope creep. And that's where I really learned the language too, in that world. Yeah, contracts are essential. We'll talk about contracts. We'll talk about ways to keep in control of that sale and make sure, half of making your business work is good communication. It really is, if not more. Oh, and Harley, by the way, you made a comment in our Facebook group about the folks in the Facebook group. If you're interested, you can go to rosh.group, and it'll take you to the Facebook group, and the code to get in is 7531. And I shared I have a infographic of the combination business scale, and where are you on that scale? And you can take a look at it over there. Harley mentioned, I kind of envisioned it the other way around. I had it from number 1 down to number 10 in the infographic, and I'm right on with you, Harley. I was thinking the same thing, but I went with the template that I found. It went from 1 to 10. It really, 10 should be at the top. So I am in the middle of actually fixing that, and I'll post that again in the group. So thank you for speaking up, Harley. You are most valuable. Thank you. So what are other things that I think that photographers are not talking about and thinking about? First of all, I think one of the biggest things in any business is starting. You have to start. And a lot of times, especially the perfectionists in us, we want to make sure everything is right. It's right on ahead of time. We want to think that if we get all of our ducks in a row, and then we start, we have all the money that we need, we have everything that we can possibly think of ready to go, then we'll start. But here's the problem. When people do that, when they start, it all breaks. Because you have no idea when you're starting what it takes and what you have to fix. So the best thing you can do, and I'm not saying don't prepare. Some people have certainly, here's our 31-day example coming at us like a train, that light at the end of the tunnel, that's a train, I sometimes start a little too quickly and not think it all through, as a few examples have been stated in my one coming at me, but I can do it. But the thing is, if you don't start, you don't know what you need to fix. If you don't start, you don't know necessarily what paperwork or what adjustments in the paperwork you need to make. You don't know what lenses you need with you all the time, what might be the best camera body for you. You might not know the best marketing for your business based on the types of clients you are going after. What is it that resonates with those folks? So you need to take the time to take that first step and do it. And then you will learn along the way. And and be ready and have your goals. I like to work in goals, 3 goals at a time. I like 3 lifetime goals. I like 3 annual goals and monthly and weekly and even daily goals. And they each support each other. And as you accomplish a goal, you add another one on that, because you can focus on 3 goals at a time without losing direction. So that's another thing I certainly plan on talking about. Definitely the client personas, as I believe I mentioned already. How to tell your story, your website, the value. When we talk about our solar system method, we talk about the website is where you convert, where you sell. And then you have inner planets, which are your blog. You have your blog, and then you have your inner planets, which are your multimedia sites. Your blog is your personality. Your inner planets are multimedia sites, and your outer planets are where you engage, where you develop relationships, and you drive them in towards your center, your website, where you convert. And we'll talk about how we can do that and how that website needs to tell your story. It needs to have a call to action. It needs to tell people why hire you as a professional over other people. How important is that? I'm going to really get into this conversation that some people look at me with a blank look when we get into this topic. When I say competition is irrelevant. Competition's irrelevant today. I'm sorry to say to me, to Diana, Harley, all of us listening on the replay, people can Google what you do. And I think we're all aware of that. And yes, and I mean, as I like to use the idea that, dare I say, a heart surgeon. We could all learn how to become heart surgeons, but you may not want to be my patient, but I could probably learn online and dare say find the heart, right? Online. It's amazing what you can find if somebody wants to take that effort and time to figure it out. So, with that, the barrier of entry into a lot of areas of business, photography, writing, whatever it may be, the barrier of entry is very low in comparison. Doesn't mean they're great. Doesn't mean they're all at the level they need to be at to be a professional. But to get into the business, it doesn't take a lot. And so that's why there are a lot of photographers. We are in the heyday of photography. Yeah, do they have the time to edit video? But if they want to become an editor, then that's what they focus. But yes, there are always good reasons to hire a professional. But my point in this, not to diminish the value of all that we do here, because there is great value. Everyone has our own eye, our own style, our own experience and abilities, and that combination allows us to bring us to the table. And when I say that competition is irrelevant, it means, look, if you're going to, it's important to use competition or other people within your field as an inspiration for education, understanding of the business, and maybe even learn something new. However, if you are worried about everyone else trying to do what you do and not focus on your growth, you're going to lose in the end. You have to focus on you and continually improve you. If I was worried, here's the basic fact, and this is one of my favorite examples, and many of you have heard this before. You know, my studio mate, it was just under a year ago. We've talked about this, how my studio mate had a proposal. And for this assignment, it's a 2-day assignment, he bid $5,000. Someone else bid $500. Another person bid $25,000. I think there are times I said it's 50. It was actually 25. But the point being is, some people say, how could he bid $5,000? And of course, I ask, how could someone bid $500? Because they certainly could not have covered that job with $500. And then, of course, some people wonder, $25,000, what's this photographer crazy? Here's the point. With all the photographers out there, we're in the heyday of photography. You have to, honestly, you have to have a photo half the time. I mean, for everything, it seems like photography is flying all over the place. If that's the case, and there are so many photographers, then why are there $25,000 photographers? Now, that photographer didn't win the bid, but it doesn't matter. That photographer wins bids, and that photographer gets $25,000, about $12,500 a day for that assignment. They do it. They're out there. There are many of them. So you have to play with the people who need people at that higher level. A lot of times it's because they asked that they got there. They worked their way, and they did get rejected, and they found out why they got rejected and what it takes to get into the crowd that needs the higher end photographers, or wherever you wish to be. Not everybody needs to be a $25,000 a day photographer, but we can all, maybe many of us can be perfectly comfortable at $5,000. The point being is, if it was totally a supply and demand thing, which quite often it is if you play the commodity game, then if you're playing the commodity game, then yeah, you play in the world of supply and demand. What you want to play is the brand game. What's your brand? Your reputation. Your brand can increase your rates. If you develop your brand, your name, who you are, you can increase your rates at the level that you desire, because there is no one else like you or who is you. No one. So when you understand that, you are still going to face the struggles everyone else faces. However, you're going to push the point of, if I don't want, as I've often said, somebody who wants a photographer. And I tell people not to be a photographer or an editor or a writer. You want somebody who wants you. You don't want somebody who needs a videographer. You want somebody who wants you. And you need to go find those people. That is 80-90% of your job in your profession, especially in the creative world, is to find those people and find the community of people who want you and are willing to pay your price. And in some cases, they really, really want you, and you're willing to work with them. But as we talk about, and another topic we will get into, certainly in the 30 days, is fine. If you lower your price, then you need to take something off the table, right? So these are the kinds of topics that we get into. And I think it's really important. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about, the business side and the legal and tax IDs, just because it's almost a requirement. But I'm going to spend the majority of my time on the things that most people are really not talking about in a way that I think most creatives need to understand, most photographers need to understand. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I just bit off a big chunk of video making, but I'll certainly make it as simple as possible. I'll probably do a lot of one takes and chop them up. Yeah, there's no one alive who is youer than you, Dr. Seuss. Thank you, Harley. And that is the truth. Absolutely the truth. And I think if more of us realize that instead of chasing the competition, we're going to all be better off as creatives. Okay. I think I'm going to wrap up this show for this week. I want to thank everybody who dropped by, and those of you who are really just can't have enough. And I don't know who in the world that could possibly be. And thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. I did 2 hours. 2 hours. I know Harley showed up for a little bit there. 2 hours of just me talking about the business. I had a list. It's kind of a lot of what is on my list for 31 days came from that list from Friday on the other channel, a 2.5 hour live stream. So I found that interesting. I may do that at some level again. I'm just looking at the results and seeing what the reaction is. There seems to be more people watching it than I thought would. So I'm pretty happy about that. Hey, I appreciate all of you in this community. We're here to support each other to grow our creative businesses. And I will see you all next week. Harley says, I caught most of the first part. During the morning workouts. All right. Thank you so much, Harley. Thank you, Diana. Thank you all who stopped by. Thank you for the thumbs up. We'll talk to you next Monday, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And hey, if anybody wants a specific topic, feel free. And thank you, Silver Paw Studio. I did see that come across. Thank you for being here. Hey, and we'll see you next week. And we'll answer some of your questions on the Creative Marketing Podcast. You have a great week.